Does Fallout 76 have good side quests? This is a question I've been asking myself over the past few weeks. A lot of you guys that have been watching my channel for a while might remember that I used to post fairly regularly some of the cool stuff you could find while playing Fallout 4. Whether that be just some of the toughest enemies you can encounter, or even just some other interesting or unique discoveries that you may have just not realized. I wanted to do similar things with Fallout 76, yet as I tried to ask around, do research around where some of these things may be, I kinda hit a wall. It seemed like for whatever reason there just wasn't nearly as much discussion, in particular around some of the best or most interesting side quests. I could find the periodic recommendations, but it wasn't that same overflow of information like I saw with Fallout 4. With Fallout 4, there was pretty much no shortage of interesting content. Some of the side quests of that game were the best quests in that game. So what's the deal with Fallout 76? Is it a simple case of the outrage or controversy around this game drowned out some of the genuinely good locations or side quests in this game, or is it something else? Is it Fallout 76 just not having as many good side quests or interesting stories to tell? Well, in this video, I wanted to find exactly that. I asked around, talked to a few people, and found some of what are supposed to be the coolest and most interesting side quests. And for the purposes of this video, I'm going to give minor spoilers, but I'm not trying to ruin the entire story. Because ideally, maybe you'll like some of the stuff you see in this video and actually go give it a try for yourself. So one of the most heavily recommended side quests, and really quests in general, is the Order of the Mysteries. This is a little bit different. It's not your traditional side quest of just one mini story and then you get a quick conclusion. It almost is like a faction quest, except it is technically a side quest, but in effect following one of the side or not major factions, that being the Order of the Mysteries. And I would say a lot of the raving reviews of this one are correct. It is a genuinely interesting story that really quickly will just suck you in. As you start down the line of this quest, there's a bit of terminal reading, so you're just kind of sitting there learning about what went on, and I could see this many terminal entries kind of dissuading some people. They would be like, oh, yep, I don't want to read that. But it's like a good book. Once you start reading this, you just want to find out more. You want to find out what happened to this faction, and I feel like with this quest in particular, it does it to an almost unparalleled degree. The basic premise and backstory of this one was a woman named Shannon Rivers played the Mistress of Mystery on a radio show. She was actually a cohort to the Silver Shroud, if that name sounds familiar. In preparation of playing this character for a TV show, she got a certain set of skills. She learned how to do certain things that would allow her to defend herself. Then when the bombs dropped, she was able to apply those skills and defend her family. Quickly thereafter, her daughter also wanted to learn these, and then a bunch of other orphaned girls also started joining, and the Order of Mysteries was born. You could find their headquarters now in a nice secret lair under the Riverside Manor, and as you're doing this quest, in effect, you're joining the Order of Mysteries. Along the way, getting to check out some of the really cool technology they built to make them even more relevant and powerful. This questline is definitely a winner. Even though it's told through holotapes and terminal entries, the writing on it and the story itself is so interesting that it will absolutely draw you in. But looking beyond this one, what about some of the other side quests in this game? It becomes almost immediately obvious that nothing is quite on the same scale as the Mistress of Mysteries or Order of Mysteries questline. I would say the average completion time for a lot of those other quests was probably roughly 30 minutes. Some of those range from literally just going to places and like picking up bottles in the Bureau of Tourism quest, where it was kind of like, why is this even a side quest? I didn't really feel like I got much out of doing that one. I was hoping for a bit more. But alternatively, there are actually some other really interesting ones. And I would say one of the cool parts about the way Fallout 76 handles these is in the way the story is being told. It actually changes up quite a bit. Take for example the Petsonal Matters quest. This is actually one of those quests that hit me in the feels a lot more than some of the other side quests I completed while filming this video. The Petsonal Matters quest is actually following the Overseer of Vault 76. Through this, you go to some of the various locations she inhabited as she was growing up, and pretty much leading up until she became an overseer for Vault 76. At each of those locations, there's literally nothing to do. You just play her holotape and get to look around at what she lived through. As a result, this experience was distinctively different from almost any other quest I've experienced in any other Fallout game. It was way more passive. I was just kind of walking around, seeing some of the stuff she was describing. Yet I think it's really sold by the voice acting by this overseer.
Really wanted to walk me down the aisle. Well, I didn't really get to walk down there either, so I think it's time I went home. I owe Evan that much.
Through this, you actually discover just how much she gave up as a result of becoming the Overseer, and it does have a pretty profound ending that will probably make you feel one way or another. One quest that really followed the kind of traditional side quest formula for Fallout games is Cold Case. The basic premise of this one is there was a little kid that went missing, and you have to find out what happened to him. He went missing before the Great War, so naturally there's a bit of a distance between the events that occur and you actually searching for him, roughly 25 years. And I found this one particularly interesting again because it really does parallel some of the other quests you find in like Fallout 4. You go through some of the same steps, trying to find some of the clues as to what happened before, listening to a bunch of holotapes that are actually of video recordings, and these are done really well. There's a bunch of background noise that's taking place at a water park, and it really sold me. I felt like I was back in the water park.
I have a surprise for you. I don't want the other kids to see, though. They might get jealous.
What is it? What's my surprise? I want to see it. Please. Please.
And going through this, you uncover the very interesting story that was the kidnapping of this little boy, and really the real reason he was kidnapped, which doesn't become immediately obvious to you once you start this. But what this also highlights, I think, is just the vast difference in storytelling. For all of these Fallout 76 quests, you're just hearing about what happened, seeing some of the bodies or remnants of what went on in the holotape you're listening to or the notes you are reading, but you never get to experience things actively, or at least for most of these quests you aren't. And in some instances, and I feel like especially on this quest that kind of took me out of it, I think this same quest with the exact same story would have been more enjoyable in Fallout 4. There's a couple of people I could have talked to. Even towards the end of this, while you're actually turning the quest in, you're basically showing the Miss Nanny robot all of the evidence you did find, and there's a couple of just really weird pauses.
Sure, so terrible for my brave boy. This you found at the home? Oh.
Like, it's pretty clear that's where there would have been a dialogue choice in Fallout 4, but in this game, she kind of just talks and then she stops as if you're handing her the next piece of evidence, and it just didn't flow too well. It kind of took me out of the quest. Although this quest in particular, I think is actually relevant to up-and-coming DLC, so I'm going to talk a little bit about it with spoilers at the end of this one. And going through several of these other quests, there are a lot of really interesting stories to be told, and a lot of the holotapes that are recorded are done really well. Like, if you ignored some of the quests just because you saw one too many terminal entries or didn't really like listening to a holotape, I would recommend giving it a second chance. Even though I didn't love the way some of these stories were told, or I'd rather interact with a human NPC, they still were interesting stories. I regret not having experienced some of these until now, and for a lot of these quests you actually do get some tangible benefits as a result. Also, for certain locations it actually gives a bit more context, buildings that you might have passed through in the past, looted through, and not realized what purpose they really served. Later on, if you do the side quests, you might be returned there and understand the greater meaning, or why that body was there. Take for example one of the Watoga quests that actually explains to you the backstory of all the angry robots in Watoga and why there really aren't even that many people. That quest is another one that's actually really cool, reading through some of the terminal entries. You discover Watoga had a program where they would randomly select a mayor, meaning there was a ton of unqualified people, and you could read through some of the bylaws those people passed, which is funny. Then you can find out how things start to go wrong with that, and it ends up being kind of a tragic tale. There are some real gems in here that I will be thinking about a month or two down the road, which are many of the ones I covered in this video, but there are a lot of other ones that I'm going to forget tomorrow because they were boring, or maybe they involved you unlocking something but they didn't really tell you a great story. It was just a tedious task that gave you a legendary item as a reward. And I would say overall the impression I got after playing a ton of these side quests all day today is there's just not as much quality content in Fallout 76 compared to past Fallouts in this category. There are again some really good quests here, but I think Bethesda devoted a lot of their efforts to creating some of those events or the daily quests that can be repeated. And as a result, some of those branching side quest storylines that we know and love just really aren't here anymore. There are things like the Order of Mysteries, and hopefully through future DLC we see more of this. But at least as it stands right now, there are a couple of really good and well-made stories, but I wouldn't say overall after playing 10 of these side quests that was every one, or even half of them. So in conclusion, to answer that original question I posed with this video, does Fallout 76 have any good side quests? Yes, absolutely. Even though I don't love the way the story is told, there are some really good stories here. It will definitely get you feeling emotional, feeling for these characters you can't even interact with, but at least in my opinion, these pale in comparison to some of the ones we saw in the likes of, let's say, Fallout 4. Fallout 4 simply had way more side quests, and hopefully this gets added to Fallout 76 through future updates and content, but at least as of right now, you can bang through all of the interesting side quests in all of a day or two, and I will have a list down below of some of my favorites. But now tying back into that quest I was talking about, the Cold Case quest, I really think this is actually going to tie into the Ever Upwards DLC, that being the one following the Pioneer Scouts. This is a DLC questline that isn't coming until May, but based off what happens in this quest and the conclusion of it, I think you might want to play it before May. So naturally, spoilers for the quest, you could even just pause this video and do the quest. It shouldn't take you more than 45 minutes if you can fast travel around. In this, you're trying to find out the fate of a little boy. During this quest, you actually find out the little boy was part of the Pioneer Scouts. But even further, you also find out that the little boy was taken into a vault, and otherwise at the end of the quest, we don't really know what happens to him. The last we hear is he was picked up by Vault Tech and hopefully survived. So even though the quest is looking for a little boy, since 25 years have passed, he would very much so be an adult now. Considering the fact that A, we do have a new DLC questline following the Pioneer Scouts, which this kid was a part of, and B, the fact that we actually do have a couple of new vaults added into Fallout 76 in the files and even in the world, it seems like it would be a huge missed opportunity if Bethesda doesn't bring up this boy or have some reference to him. Maybe we actually find out what his life was like in the vault that he did inhabit. Before filming this video, I hadn't seen anyone talk about this, and I obviously hadn't completed the side quest until now, but I think that's pretty interesting. Hopefully there are more little tidbits of information out there that Bethesda is planning on expanding upon with Fallout 76's DLC. Either way, hopefully this video served as an informative one for you. There really is some cool content in Fallout 76 that I think a lot of people might have passed up on. It's worth checking out, experiencing, and I think you'll probably enjoy it, even if there isn't a ton of it. But with that, as always again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.
And my Freddy? This writing. This is Freddy's. His father. He did not want Freddy with the uncle, but so much love. Freddy